Have you ever attempted to define your life in just a few significant phases? And if so, how would you describe those defining moments that allowed you to evolve from one phase to the next? What's your story? My name is Heather, and I'm a recovering attorney. I've come up with 3 significant phases in my life: lawyer, lobbyist, leadership. My lawyer phase I call passing the bar, and that's everything related to my formal education. My lobbyist phase I call going to the bar, for obvious reasons. And that was a time in my life where I was so fortunate to work with and learn from some of the most influential people in this world. My leadership phase I call raising the bar. What I'd like to describe for you today is the defining moment that took me from my lobbyist phase to my leadership phase. It started in early 2001. I was boarding a plane from Indianapolis to Chicago, and that was back in my lobbying days. So when I got on an airplane back in that day, I was like in my airplane bubble. That was my opportunity to shut the rest of the world out and just relax. So when I boarded that plane, I was very grateful to see that my seatmate was already nose deep in his book when I walked out. I got in that seat and I fell asleep before takeoff. I didn't wake up until the pilot came on and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, we've reached our cruising altitude and it's now safe to use all electronic devices." At the same time, my seatmate closes his book with a really dramatic sigh. And you know what I'm thinking here. This airplane bubble is just about to be compromised. I thought he was going to tell me all about his book. And what he did, he took his book, he looked at it, and he handed it to me. He said, "Here, this book's for you. You're going to need it. It's going to change your life." That was it. Nothing more. So I take the book from him, and I looked at the cover, and I distinctly remember that moment when I read the title of that book, thinking that this title sounded absolutely ridiculous. This is not a book I would have picked up and would have read of my own volition, but here's the thing. I could not mistake his sincerity and his confidence, his belief that this book was meant for me and was going to change my life. So I take the book, I open it, and I start reading. Before you know it, I'm nose deep in the book, just as my seatmate had been, for the rest of the short ride from Indianapolis to O'Hare. When I got in the cab from O'Hare back to my place in the city, I read the whole way. When I got home, I kicked off my shoes and I dropped my luggage in my front hall, and I went and I sat down on the couch and I continued to read that book from cover to cover. You see, that book was not only written about me, that book, I believe, was written for me and was meant to change the course of my life, and it did because of the decision that I made when I read that book. You ready for it? The decision that I made that day was to take complete personal responsibility for all my results and my success in life. Now, even as I say that out loud, I know that I need to back up and share with you a little bit more about why that decision was so significant for me. Because as I was reading that book, I realized that somewhere along the line, I had decided that it was up to someone else to mentor and grow me. I thought it was up to my boss or my department head or one of the other lawyers in my firm to grow and mentor me. And in fact, my growth, personally and professionally, dictates my results in life. So wait a minute, I was on someone else's watch for my results in life because I was waiting for someone else. When I recognized that, I made a decision to make the biggest investment, the most important investment in my life, the investment in me. Now, it took almost 3 years to the date of reading that book before my husband and I designed and began to live the life of our dreams. We quit our jobs in Chicago. We'd made the decision to move down to our vacation place in Southwest Florida, which we consider to be paradise. And by the way, on the way, we stopped in Europe for 6 months. We did a 4-month Spanish immersion program, and then we traveled Western Europe for 2 months, just for some fun. So life looks a little bit different now. And I bet if you're like the many people who have sat in the audience and listened to this story in the past, you might be sitting there thinking, if I could only get my hands on that book. So if you are thinking that, I want to leave you with 3 very important points. Number 1, the power of influence. My seatmate, when he handed me that book, he didn't just say, hey, this is a pretty good book, you should read it. No, he took that book and he said, here, this book is for you. You're going to need it. It's going to change your life. Now, do you think I may have read that book in just a little different way? Because I believed in his belief that that book was going to change my life. The power of influence. Number 2 is the power of your decision. I want you to really think about this. Do you think it was the book that changed my life? Or do you believe, like I do, that that book was just a catalyst? And the thing that actually changed my life was the decision that I made when I read that book. I've read so many other really great books that have had a very similar message since then. I know millions of people read that same book that I read. Some of them changed their lives. Most of them just read a really good book. The power of your decision. It's decision that leads to action. And the third thing I want to share with you is the power of your generosity. Share. When you have something important, when you learn something, when you get something, share it and share it with all sorts of passion so that someone else might get what you got. That man on the plane, I don't know his name. I'd love to properly thank him. When he shared that with me, I don't know why he chose me. Was he just so excited that he couldn't wait for someone else to read that book? Why didn't he give it to someone in his office or someone in his family? See, I believe the day that he gave me that book, that gift, it was one of the best gifts that I've opened. I also believe I took on the responsibility to share that gift with as many people as I can. Now, the gift that he gave me that day was not just the book. The gift that I opened that day was my mind. I hope you enjoyed my story of how I evolved from lobbyist to leadership. If you did, please feel free to share it. What I'd like to share with you is a copy of my book list. If you fill out the form below at heatherchristie.com, I'll send you a copy of that book list, which includes not only the book from the airplane, but also some other books that made a significant impact in my life. And if nothing else, can we all just agree that we're happy that there's one less lawyer practicing law?